Hello everyone, welcome to day 5 of building a startup. It is Thursday morning at 11:30, and again I'm Pacific time here in Orange County, Southern California. And today I wanted to talk about mapping out the project. So it's been, like I said, 5 days since I decided to start this venture. And I wanted to document the whole thing so that everyone can see the process of how this is done. Building a startup from 0 to 1, basically just from the inception of the idea and executing on it and seeing where it goes. I'm pulling in my experience from the past 9 years in building startups, understanding the challenges, how hard it is, and still having yet to find an idea that has product market fit, right? So this new idea, I want to document and share everything that I do. And it doesn't matter what happens with this. The result can be something great, success, which is obviously the intention, or it could be, something that we have to close up and realize that it didn't, have what we thought as far as product market fit, or maybe we want to pivot. Anyway, I don't know how long this is going to take, and that's the whole thing with startups too. But we do have to make some important decisions, including at the end whether we pull the plug on this thing, right? And I've also learned that you have to make these decisions rather quickly. You don't want to drag on. But I've also learned that if it does show promise, and if you do measure accurately, if something is showing promise, then stick with it, right? Don't give up. Always keep pushing, and eventually things will start to happen the way you want it to. So with that said, I haven't actually started writing any code or building this product, and that's kind of eating me alive because with the last video, as you saw, I got that email from that potential client, customer, publisher of a lot of newspapers and online news sites and magazines in Southern California, and they were interested in the idea and they wanted to know more. So I replied, sent them a reply based on what we whiteboarded out the next day, and so far I haven't received a reply back. So I was kind of expecting that. I gave them a lot of information based on what they were asking, and maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe I should have just suggested that we get on a phone call and talk about it. However, they were asking very specific questions in the email, and I felt we were still at the stage of exploratory, so I thought an email back was appropriate. And I did give them a lot of information, and so maybe they could still be just mulling over everything that I told them. Or it could be that, I bombarded them with too much information, and so they're just kind of at this point at a standstill, moving on. They've dismissed me, who knows what, right? That's the other thing about startups too, is you have things that happen that can either make you super ecstatic and optimistic about what you're doing, and it'll energize you and make you want to push forward even more. And there will be days where things happen that give you doubt, right? And will demoralize you and will make you feel like, what am I doing? This is a bad idea. This is never going to work. This is the up and downs emotionally of startups that you also have to anticipate. That's why it's also good to have a co-founder, which is something that I'm going to document in this as well, as getting a co-founder or multiple co-founders to help me out with this, because you can't do this alone, right? Even though I'm full stack and I can build this thing out, I'm going to need people that can not only give me moral support, but can also help me out with this project. Some people that are stronger at certain things than I am, hopefully, maybe on the coding side, maybe on the sales side. I don't know, right? So we'll have to go out and find that, reach out to people that I know and see who might be interested in joining me in this venture. So anyway, I don't want to wait for a reply at this point, right? It's been 2 days, and even though what these people have to say would be crucial in how I start off building this thing, I just can't wait forever, because also it's really important psyche-wise to start building. So with that said, I wanted to share a program that I like to use for mapping out my projects. And this program is super useful as well in mapping it out using Scrum Methodology or Agile methodology. So without any further ado, we're going to go to the site. It's called Trello. So Trello.com. So go to Trello, and you can set up a free account. It's really great. And they also have a pay version with more features, right? But the freemium I find is great, super helpful. So here I can view all my boards, and a board is basically a project. So for this, I'm going to create a brand new board. Let's see here. So I have my personal boards. I have Baxter Dev. Let's see here. I'm going to create a new team, and I'm going to call this Presso, which is the name of the startup. And I'll leave the description for later, since I know what it is. And what's really great about a board is you can invite other people to work in the same board. So I'll show more about that here. All right, so the board is going to be, let's see here, Presso. I'm just going to call it that for now. We can get more descriptive later, perhaps. And then you can choose backgrounds and things, whatever. Don't get too wrapped up in doing stuff like that. That's just a waste of time, in my opinion. So it picks some random background, and I'm fine with it. All right, so with Scrum methodology, there is a way of mapping out doing a project to ensure that you're prioritizing the right things, that you are working on what's most important, that you're able to track what's happening, and that you're reaching milestones at a specific time. And it also is a way to capture everything that you want to do. And like I said, with priority is then pull the things that are most important into what are called sprints. So sprints are these units of time that you divide your project up into. And each sprint, it could be a week sprint or 2 week sprint, depending on what you think works best for your project. But within each sprint, you add cards. And each card is a task that you would work towards building a feature. So you create a backlog with everything that you'd like to see, and even some ideas that maybe you aren't super important, but you want to throw it out there news. A backlog is a way to capture everything. And then from the backlog, you move stuff into your sprint. And then you go ahead and assign the tasks out to the people in your team to perform those tasks. But what is also very important is with each task, you want to be able to estimate how much time each task is going to take. And with Scrum methodology, the best way to do that is instead of trying to figure out specific times, right? Like, oh, this will take an hour, this will take 8 hours, this will take a day or a week or who knows what. Instead, you use a Fibonacci scale. So Fibonacci, if you're not familiar, was a mathematician back in, I think it was like the 1100s AD. And he was a mathematician who observed certain things in nature, and one of them being that it seems that in life and in general in nature, whether it be organic, animals or plants for that matter, that things are divided up in a specific way where they start off large and then they get smaller by half, by half, by half. It's almost like an exponential increment of division. So for instance, when you look at a tree, you have a very large trunk, and then from there, you have a piece of branch that would be about half of the size of the trunk. And then after that, another joint would be half the size of the last piece, and so on and so forth. And the same goes with humans or animals, right? We're like, look at the arm, right? So I have, my body, and then this part of the arm is about half of my torso, and then you get to the hand, and the hand, this part is about half of my forearm, and then the finger, the first part is about half of the hand, and then the next part is half of that, and so on and so forth, right? So another way to look at it, or they use a snail shell, right, as another example of Fibonacci. If you Google it, where the spirals kind of divide up and they increase larger and larger. In that respect, they would be increasing exponentially. So the number would be a 1, and then a 2, or a 3, right? And then it would jump to 5, and then it would jump to 8, and then 12, and then 20, right? And then 40. So you can assign these numbers to basically estimated amounts of time. So if you assign a task of 1, that means that it would be really easy. You can probably knock it out in about an hour. If you assign a task, let's just say we jump to 3, right? then that would mean that it's a little bit harder, more effort put into it, so we would give that half a day. If you assign a task of 5, that's probably an all-day thing. If you assign a task, let's say we leap from a 5 then to a 10, then instead of all day, that's more of half a week, right? 3 days, let's say. If you assign a task like 15, then we're looking at a whole week. And then from there, you could say, obviously, you put a maximum on this thing, right? You don't want to work on anything. You want to divide tasks up into smaller bits. That's the point of Scrum methodology as well. So if something is, like going to take 2 weeks, then your task probably isn't defined well enough. So then you want to go back, define it more, see where you can actually be more specific about what the tasks require, and then divide them up into smaller tasks, right? So that way, each task, your largest task is going to be, no more than a couple days, maybe a half a week. You could even maybe allow for a task to take a whole week. I could see where that might apply, right? Where you can't divide it up anymore. It's just something that's going to take a whole week to build out. That makes sense. So in that case, then you probably want to have a sprint that's going to be a 2-week sprint. Sprints don't get any bigger really than 3 weeks. There might be cases where they're bigger, but again, just like with tasks, a sprint helps you to divide up your project into smaller pieces, right? So that's how it works. Hopefully I explained that okay. There's a great book also about this. Let's see here. I have my iBooks in here. You buy everything digitally now, right? So I have books on my bookshelf, but a lot of the books I read now are either in iBooks or they're in audiobook, or it's Amazon. So let's see here. If I launch iBooks real quick. I think the guy's name is Christopher Sutherland, and he wrote the book on Scrum, right? And there's a lot of books about Scrum and Agile methodology. There's different takes on it, right? And there's also, it also has to do with the team and how the team is divided up. You have what's called a Scrum Master, who's sort of in charge of the whole team. You have a product manager or a project manager, or a product owner, I should say, and that person would be in charge of removing barriers for the team, right? Because sometimes in order for a developer to do their job, they have to be able to remove any barriers in the way that would prevent them from doing it, right? Sometimes they're working on something and they hit a barrier. And it's something that if they start working on it themselves, it'll distract them from doing what they need to be doing. And that's where the product owner comes in. They're there to remove those barriers, right? Whether it be some problem with hosting or some issue with a license that they need to purchase or who knows what, right? They're the ones that take care of that stuff. Get that out of the way to keep everybody moving and working. Let's see here. I should have had my iBooks open already to share with you guys this thing. Let's see. It's new, so it wants me to look at things here. Okay, here it's opening up now. I probably got the name completely wrong too, I imagine. Where are you? Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, it's Jeff Sutherland, not Chris Sutherland. And it's called The Art on Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time. Scrum. Check that book out. Really awesome. And my mouse is dying on me. All right, here we go. So, back to Trello. So we're going to start with the first column, and that's going to be the backlog. And in here, we're just going to basically dump everything in it that we could think of that our project needs. And then, let's see here. We're going to add a sprint column with all sprint tasks. And then after that, we're going to call the column in progress. And those are the tasks that are being worked on at the current moment. Then we're going to create a, let's see here, a QA column. So once the task is complete, we put it into the QA column for the QA person to go ahead and test it. And once they test it, they'll either determine that it needs more work, it has some bugs, so we're going to create a bugs column, or they'll determine that it's done, in which case we'll put it in the done column. We'll create a done column there. All right, so this is pretty much our sprint board right here. So in the backlog now, you add everything. So I'm going to start here by saying, all right, and this is also where you can just put in your general stuff and then divide it up from there to put it into sprint tasks. And that's when you want to estimate the amount of time. And that's also when you divvy up everything to your team, right? So you want everybody to have about the equal amount of effort in the task that they're assigned within a sprint. And that's to make sure that your team is super efficient. No one's doing most of the heavy work, or the heavy lifting, that is. So that's the point of that. Anyway, so building out a backlog, you usually want your whole team to be there so that everybody can throw out ideas. And no idea is wrong, right? I mean, it depends on the team and the culture. But typically with Scrum, you want to just brainstorm and throw everything you can into the backlog that you can think of. In this case, I'm a team of one, and as this project progresses, I expect to see more faces around here, right? But for now, it's just me. So I'm going to build the backlog by saying, set up web host. And even that could probably be divided into smaller tasks. But we'll just capture that for now. Let's see here. Build out backend database. Let's see here. Configure DNS. Next one would be, let's see here, set up dev environment. So these are all the things I have to do before I can even start writing down code. All right, so once I have the database set up, I have the dev environment set up, I should probably go ahead and set up a production environment. Once I do that, then we can start building it out. So we have a user-facing web portal, and that definitely will be divided up into smaller tasks. That's a whole sprint in and of itself, but I'll just capture this for now. We're going to do a client-facing web portal. We're going to do, let's see here, we're going to need a sign-on system, sign up / sign in for our web portal. And that's going to come with a form and an onboarding wizard. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and add that too, onboarding for both users. So I got onboarding for users and onboarding for client, which will go in their respective portals. And again, these are really big chunks, so we're going to divide these up once we start tackling them. Let's see here. So we got onboarding for users, onboarding for clients. We got sign up, sign in, user client facing web portal. Let's see. We're going to need. I think that probably. Yeah, we're going to need also. But that goes for the database where they're going to sign in, and that'll be good. We're going to need a dashboard for both. And then we're going to need to set up our payment system. So payment setup for users. And then I'm going to put in a slash here for Stripe setup. Then there's also design, right? So we're going to need to design a button, because that's what everyone's going to see, right? Is that button. And I think that'll be cool to get that image just there for everybody to kind of visualize in their head to start sort of the vision for branding, right? Design a button, and then we're going to need to obviously wireframe the site. And then we can finally start coding out the different aspects of everything, right? So create pages, HTML, CSS, responsive for sure. We're going to be doing this from scratch. We're not using any templates. We might use a little bootstrap, things like that, which I'll talk about later. All right, so that gives us a good start for a backlog. So right now, I'm not going to plan a sprint. What I'm going to do is let's plan my first sprint. The first sprint is just going to be for the rest of this week. So by the time I am recording day 8, then I should have these things done. So we're going to do the web host setup. We're going to start designing out our database. We're going to configure DNS. We're going to set up dev environment. We're going to set up the production environment. And then we can start building out our design portals, sign in, wireframe of the site. Maybe I'll do that too. That's a lot right there. And if I were to estimate, setting up a web host will take, probably about an hour. So that's going to get a 1. Build out backend database, that'll take about half a day to whiteboard and understand all the columns and all the different tables I'm going to need. I'm going to be using MySQL because it's free. So that's going to take probably a half a day to a day. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that one a 5. So I got a 1 and a 5. Let's see here, configuring DNS, that's super quick, that's a 1. Set up dev environment, that's about, I'll assign that a 3 because that could take a couple hours all the way to about half a day. Set up production environment, same thing, about a 3. And then wireframe the site, that's probably about half a day to a day, so I'll assign that a 5. All right, so I think that's pretty good for me, just a team of 1 right now. And one last thing, now that we're done with this, I wanted to mention, kind of as a tail off from the last video that I recorded, is I said that I love my job, right? And if this thing gets going, then I'll have to make some hard decisions about leaving it. Here's the thing though, I wanted to give some more background to that. Even though I love my job, it's probably the first job I've ever loved. I have always been in the entrepreneurial world. My parents were entrepreneurs. They were more small business entrepreneurs. They didn't understand startups in the sense that I do and what I'm doing. But if you're a company person, if you've been with a corporation for a long time, you are someone that has always enjoyed working for other companies. You like the security that it provides, the insurance, the vacations, the time off, things like that, the paid time off, personal time. And I understand that stuff is super important. You definitely have to have an element of risk-taking in you, right? This is not for the faint of heart. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not a corporate person at all. I have bounced around a lot in my career, even though I've always been in technology because I enjoy it. I owned my own company for a long time. So I worked as an IT consultant for several years, and I enjoyed that because I got to be out and about. I got to go to different sites, and it broke up the monotony. I wasn't stuck in a cubicle or a box. And that was great for a while, and I learned a lot. However, I started to see problems. We hit the Great Recession, clients were leaving, and the guys that were running the company, I felt weren't making the best decisions. At that point, I felt that I had to move on and actually start my own IT consulting firm in order to, do things the way I thought they should be done. I had ideas, as we all do, and I wanted to act on them, right? And I wanted to be in control. So I started my own company called Assist Tech in 2011, and built it out and ran it for 4 years, and then I sold it. So I was able to sell it and move on from there, and that's how I funded my first startup. So, I did that while I had a family and while I had obligations and responsibilities, but that was a way for me to transition out from being stuck, beholden to, a job and bosses, to being in control of my own work, right, and my own destiny, even though I still had clients that I had to answer to, and I had obligations there as well as to my family still, but I was able to control more the policies and what I wanted to do, which really was great. It was a huge learning experience. I built it out. I was able to get a great roster of clients who loved my company, loved me, and I was able to hire employees. And then I finally sold it for $140,000, more or less, 144. So with that, I was able to break out and get into the startup world, and I took a bet and I put money in order to bootstrap it. They call it bootstrapping, right? Before you get angel investment, to start the idea out. Brought some people on board to work with me, and that was called PinTip. And we released PinTip on Android and iOS, and we learned a lot. We pivoted, we added business elements to it, And unfortunately, it just didn't really take off like we thought it would. I could do a post-mortem on that and what we maybe could have done differently, or maybe, it doesn't matter what we would have done, even if we would have had a ton of money invested in it. Most startups fail, right? And why do they fail? Because maybe there wasn't a real need for it. There wasn't product market fit. It wasn't unique enough. So many things, right? So with that being said, you learn from everything. And coming out from that, I knew a lot more, and I'm ready to get into the next thing. So since then, I realized I needed to learn coding. I needed to be more technical as far as development was concerned, even though I was technical in the IT realm as far as servers and hosting and things like that, sysadmin stuff. I needed to learn more about building and coding. So I spent that time doing that. I needed to learn about databases and SQL. And with the current job that I'm in now, I was able to really get hands-on with SQL. And that was actually huge in helping me to become full stack. So anyway, that being said, I'm always, interested in creating and building, in being an entrepreneur, where the opportunities are. And if you have that mentality and mindset, I think that's also something that's important to have or develop if you're going to get into the startup world. Anyway, so that's it for today. And hopefully I'll have some good news in my next video as far as some reply from the person that I emailed about working with them on this project. And until then, thanks for subscribing, and talk to you soon.